Master of Wine is an individual who has passed a rigorous 3-part multi-year exam that tests the candidate's knowledge of breadth and depth in the art, the science, the business of wine, all parts of the wine world.
Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to BTN's Inside the Drinks business series. I'm here with Susan R Lin. She's a master of wine and I'm here at her place. Thanks for having me here, Susan.
Hi, Sid. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. So guys, we're going to chat about, all about master of wine and, what it takes to be a one. What are the advantages, the typical questions that we have, and we'll deep dive more into a case study, some actionable insights. So, great to have you here, Susan, for everything. Let's start at, giving a little introduction about yourself. What have you been doing and how have you become master of wine? And just tell us a little bit about your journey, please.
Sure. So it was kind of a circuitous journey, actually. I never thought I would be in the wine industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started out with a focus in classical music, working on the classical piano and also playing the trumpet and baritone horn, and then going into jazz and focusing on classical ballet and dance. But my dad is an electrical engineer, and he was hoping that I would go into high tech. And I eventually did. So I went to University of California at Berkeley.
Amazing school, yeah.
Yes, and I wasn't a marching band, so I kept with the music. And I graduated from there and started working in semiconductors.
Nice.
So I started working with advanced micro devices, and I eventually went to Tokyo to oversee a merger with Fujitsu Microelectronics.
So you had a corporate job before this?
Yes.
Nice.
And so in between that, I actually I quit and I went to New York and I danced full time. And then I got recruited by Google. And so I switched over to software.
Wow.
So I became an engineering program manager at Google for several years, working on search quality and then maps quality, in charge of Japan, Asia Pacific. So I was traveling between here in California and Beijing and Tokyo. I went from 0 to platinum on United within 3 months. And that was tough, but I'm glad I did it. During that time, I had always been studying wine just for myself, because my first job was really to play the piano when I was a child. First, I even went and played at restaurants and things, and I saw all this hospitality that was happening, and I was fascinated by it. And my grandfather also, my mother's father, always had a bottle of wine and cognac at his house whenever we went to visit to entertain. And I thought, what is this? So from a very young age, I wanted him to tell me what this was, because it was fascinating to me. He began to taste little bits for me. Yeah. To this day, my mom says she never knew what was happening. But I got my first taste of what magic a really great beverage can bring to bring people together, the important role it can play. He taught me that, my grandpa.
Fantastic.
And so with that, I always had this interest, and I started studying. And I thought, after I was working in high tech for a while, why don't I put some academic backbone to my studies? I just want to give an academic framework and really push myself a little bit more. And so I did my research, and I wanted to go with the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, the WSET, based out of London, because it seemed like the most academic approach and systematic approach I wanted, because I wasn't necessarily interested in the on-premise experience. I wanted the holistic experience.
You just wanted to learn about basic products and what
where the grapes come from, all these things from beginning to end, from soil to market, right? So I chose that, and once I started, I just didn't want to stop.
And this was while you were actually working, you were learning as well.
Yes,
on the side.
And then actually around the same time, I decided to pursue my lifelong dream of pursuing a master's in classical music, musicology.
Amazing.
And so I applied for that, and it was tough because I didn't have an undergrad in that, but I did a lot of work and a lot of auditioning. I basically was working on my WSET diploma, the level 4 diploma, at the same time as I was doing my working on my Master of Fine Arts. while I was working because I really wanted to. Looking back at it, it seems nuts, but I'm really happy I did it. And then it was during that time that I was recruited into the wine industry. And
By who?
By Belmont Wine Exchange,
Okay.
the small boutique fine wine retailer based out here in Hayward, California. And honestly, I thought, wow, I was very honored. You know, I thought, what an opportunity. And
Nice.
I thought,
What do you do there?
It was a great opportunity to go. So we're a very small company. There's only a few of us, and I do a lot of the outward facing relationships with our producers, negociants, partners, and also with our customers.
So you take care of the buying, I guess, make a portfolio.
Yes, together with the owner, yes.
Got it.
And there's literally like 6 or 7 of us. So
Okay.
yeah, very, very small. But we deal with fine wine. And so these wines are very, very on the high price point.
The inventory of that store must be high for the low units, right? I guess.
Yes. And so that's the reason why we actually moved to Hayward too. We have a good storage space there. And we actually, storage is now part of the business as well, which is
so people can collect and store and all right, understood.
Yeah. And actually people are running their small wine businesses out of there. So we're helping to promote small businesses.
Very interesting.
Well. And
nice.
The other part of what I do for Belmont Wine Exchange is really my role as head of wine expertise, honestly, because it's the wines that are coming in. You know, I've worked on authentication training and other things like that, because, you know, if you're getting something like Armand Rousseau and you're getting, you know, Domaine Romanée Comté, you're getting Petrus, you want to make sure that it's the real deal. You want to make sure that the provenance is secure, that, you know, the condition, whatever it is, right? And be very transparent to the customer about that, because, you know, we don't want to be we don't say we're the highest, the lowest price, you know, or whatever. We want the right bottle of wine for the right person.
Got it.
And so I do spend a lot of time
ensuring that
on
brand that people can trust you. At least that you won't be misled here.
Exactly,
you know,
because if I can't vouch for a wine, you know, a bottle 100%, I have to say no, because it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. I mean,
let's go where you said these 3 things. I'm very interested to go a little off topic, but it's interesting to know. So what do you do to make sure this product is authentic? You know, let's say, how do you check? Where do you check? You know, lots going on in crypto as well, right? But I don't know, how do you validate that this is from the source? And also, how do you validate the authenticity of what you do?
Right. Well, obviously, you know, the closer you can get to the original source, the better.
Okay.
But a lot of times, you know, with wines that are back vintage, it's really difficult to do that. Wines have changed hands. You know, a bottle of port has been there since 1917, you know, whatever. But the key is to do so much research, is to research the history of these producers, what was happening in the wine trade at that point, who was dealing with whom, were they bottling themselves on a estate, were they working with negociants only? That will tell you so much about what kinds of materials they used, from the glass to the foil.
And then you will try to see.
And on the label, what types of paper they use. I mean, I have jeweler loop, I have special light, blue lights, things like that, to be able to do these things, because it's going to be different for every region and even different producers.
But isn't there something as simple as just, you know, a firm or a scanning something and that just says, yes, it's good, or no, there is some, you know, copy thing in this?
It's not quite as simple as that, because the counterfeiters have gotten so good.
Got it.
Yeah, it's become an arms race almost. You know, I mean, it's still going on strong. And counterfeiters are now moving from high, priced items to
like a $40 Napa cab or something.
They know they can make money on volume.
Wow.
I've even heard of Carlo Rossi being counterfeited, because maybe if whatever the 2% they're making is enough for them to continue the business. It's fascinating. Amazing. I mean, anything is a business, right? Amazing. But, you know, my business, and just for my own personal, you know, fulfillment, I want to make sure that people are getting the bottles that they want. And it is a lot of work. So I do spend a good deal of time on that. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that is not educating the customers, really, I should say, interacting with the customers and meeting them where they are, and helping them to understand, you know, what it is that they may be looking for, helping them find, maybe taste new things, if they're pushing the boundaries a little bit, if they're willing. And also to help them understand, you know, if they have questions. And a lot of times they do have questions.
It looks to me you cater very high profile clients, and, you know, who have custom requirements depending on the experience they want to have or an occasion they have. You know, so what kind of questions do you normally get? Hey, Susan, my next thing is this, you know, I'm looking for this. Give me an example of a question of your kind of customer.
Yeah, so one common one is, well, I want to build a case, for my daughter when she becomes 21, or when she is going to be married someday or something like that. I want wines that are going to be so good, that will be iconic, and that will last until that time. Except I only have this much budget.
Got it.
And so, or some people have very big budgets, it depends. But whatever budget that person is on, I work with them to bring the best value,
Understood.
the best quality that they can get. And I will be very upfront with them about, the longevity of the wine, where it comes from, and, how they should store it for the best possible longevity and things like that. So, it's a real pleasure to be able to do things like that. Also, a lot of pairing questions. Or, when should I open this wine? People will panic. They'll call. They'll call
just
and say,
make sure that it doesn't.
Am I going to ruin this wine? And
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much, that people really take it seriously, and it's a part of a huge celebration, and they want it to be wonderful, and I love to be able to assist them in those situations.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Master of Wine, Susan. Right? Like I think you are one of those personalities who's just meant for PhD and academic, and you can focus. I guess that's what it looks like to me. Just a little backstory is I did apply in Berkeley as well. I got rejected. I've done computer science, so by the study part, and that's the best school at that time. I remember it was for the computers. So you come from like very academic driven background. Based on what I know, I think that is needed sort of in somewhat pursuing a career like Master of Wine, because it's so much like discipline is going to be needed. What's your comment on that?
You're absolutely right.
Right? Like
it really brings something out of you if you want to go that path that requires a discipline, a courage, digging yourself out of the depths of lows and that even I had never experienced before.
So let's define the program. Can you explain how would you, if you were to tell me, Susan, if I were to ask you, what's Master of Wine?
Master of Wine is an individual who has passed a rigorous 3-part multi-year exam that tests the candidate's knowledge of breadth and depth in the art, the science, the business of wine, all parts of the wine world. Globally. So understanding agriculture and soil science, to the chemistry of lab analysis in winemaking, to supply chain logistics, and what will help a bulk wine make it from one end of the world to another without issue, and what happens when there are issues, and then what are the trends, what are the business implications of wines for people who are making very luxury wine like Petrus, to people who are making a wine that sells by the hundreds and thousands of cases. What are those decisions? How are those decisions going to and parameters going to impact the choices even made in the soil?
Understood.
To every part of the business. And what are the trends of business? What do societies think about this, wellness trends and health, and how does alcohol fit into that? Or does it? All those questions. So it's very fascinating. You can't just say, I want to deal with these types of wines. You need to know two buckchuck to your Petrus, right? And you need to understand how those are made and what business decisions drive those and what nature decisions drive those. Because in some parts of the world, you can't grow grapes the same way you would grow in other parts of the world. And how do they deal with that? Why are they making those decisions? So it really, there is no textbook for this. There can never be. And it's always changing. So
I was about to ask you, do curriculums change every year? You said 3-year program.
It's multi-year. 3-year is the bare minimum of what you can get through, and most people take way longer.
Okay.
Because it's hard.
Yeah,
it really
I can
is.
imagine. I mean, so walk us through the program. What does it include? How it starts, what are the fees? How can one apply, please?
Okay, so there is an application process, and it was I thought it was somewhat akin to applying for a graduate program. You have to have your recommendations. You write. You have your CV. You have your essays that you have to write. Your essay of intent. You have to take entrance exams. Those are all highly monitored, and Yes, and so you submit those, and along with, obviously they want to know your what you can contribute to the industry and why you're doing it, because this is not a path for everyone, and that's okay. And I think that is something that everyone should understand. Just like the Court of Master Sommeliers or any path that one chooses, you can reach success in your industry and your career path through good old street cred. You can do, it's the things that you do. You don't have to have something like this, but for some people,
absolutely,
that's the way that they want to do it, and this is the way that I wanted to do it. And throughout the process, I tell you, even I doubted that. Because it was so difficult.
I'm sure there will be self doubts. You would want to quit. It's so much studying. Did you pass in all one go? How did it go?
It was very difficult. So I actually did it in four years. Okay. Which is considered extremely fast.
So what do you mean 4 years? Are there different exams and you just take your time to pass, or it's just one grand final exam and you apply for that?
Yes. So there are 3 stages of the exam, and the stage 1 is typically done in the first year. So after you get accepted into the program, if you're accepted, and during my year of acceptance, there was less than 40% acceptance rate for the new recruits. So
sorry to interrupt. Are there limits in how many they take, or?
It's based on who they see in the candidates. They don't have there's no quota.
Okay.
Good question.
Because it's a study from home sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but but throughout each year, there are seminars. There's an annual seminar in different parts of the world. Like say there's one thankfully for those of us here in California, there's one in Napa or San Francisco, and then there's one in Australasia, somewhere maybe in Adelaide. And then there's one usually in London or in Bordeaux, in Rust, Austria. It changes throughout the years based on availability, but then students from all over the world can go to their seminars. And then there's also course days twice a year, which is basically local, and there are tutorial sessions like 2 or 3 days in a row.
So you get selected, let's say 40% get selected, and then you start your first year, and then you said you had the first exam usually after the first year.
The first exam after the first year, usually done in June.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that one is the first sort of gatekeeper.
Okay.
That's saying, is this candidate going to be ready to progress onto the real MW exam, which is the stage 2 exam, which is practically a week long, and it's every day in a row.
And you got to pass the first exam
before
to continue.
You can move on. So you're a stage 1 student until you passed the stage 1 exam, which I think many people, if they are well geared towards the program, can pass. But I've seen that definitely people have taken it again because it's even if you've done maybe diploma for WSET, or people can come from, they don't have to do WSET.
Oh, I thought that it's a requirement to do 3 all WSET. That's what I thought.
That was sort of the traditional path that has gone up, but because the Institute has gotten more awareness and it wants to be more open its doors wider. So there's people from different backgrounds, but you have to be able to prove that you have a good experience in wine to some sort of academic degree.
Understood.
Yeah. So before you get accepted into the program, but you don't have to have gone that path. I want to make that clear.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good to know.
But for those who have that reference, going from diploma, which was a 2-year, takes at least 2 years and was way more difficult than the level 3 advanced WSET. The stage 1 in the MW made the entire diploma seem like child's play.
Wow.
To me. But once I got past that, which I did on the first try, when I got to stage 2, it made stage 1 seem like less than child's play. I don't know what, it was so, the distance between those and what's required of the candidate is worlds apart from stage 1 even. Yeah. So that true MW exam, the week-long exam, is truly
let's just elaborate on the value part of Master of Wine. What value do you think, what kind of value do you really specifically bring just because you studied Master of Wine to your own current role? Like just because of that, you've just added real monetary value to the boss or the business? Oh gosh, just because you have to understand, you gain an understanding of every part of the wine business, the expertise that you bring, the market knowledge that you bring, because literally every day still, now it's a habit now for me to be looking at
the live X indices on fine wine, basically, like it's like the S&P 500 of fine wines,
I think you would know where to go.
Yeah.
Because at least you know where to go. And let's say if I were to be in your role, I don't know where to go, and that time would be wasted.
Yes.
Because everything is there in a way, right? You can always learn. I don't know, correct me, but what is something which you can do which anyone else cannot do,
I think one of the main things that MW teaches you to do is synthesis, because you cannot pass this exam by having photographic memory. You can't read all the books and then know everything, because you might have data, but you don't have knowledge, you don't have understanding.
Yes.
And the synthesis of, again, what I was referring to, what realities, financial, nature, whatever, will impact the decisions that a winemaker will make, or a brand will make, a corporation will make, a farmer will make. All these things really, really help you to understand how to take that information and understand how it's interconnected and how they affect one another. And so for me, not only do I have, the supply chain logistics, market forces on what to buy, when, what's happening in the ports, so where I can get my wines, what's impacting our negociants and how I can work with them better, understand their areas of pain, and to meet them on a level where I understand how we can hopefully work together better, to benefit the both of us, to have a perspective on where anybody else is coming from, which is a great thing in life in general.
Yep.
But the other thing is also very importantly, when I'm talking with a customer, and so many of the times, they'll come back saying, this bottle of wine was bad, it was faulty, this was terrible, and first of all, I want to acknowledge that they had a bad experience and take care of them. But then, because of all this studying that I've done, I can also bring in this knowledge of wine faults and what actually happens in the bottle. How does alcohol work?
Yeah.
What happens, and with the knowledge of what wine it was and how it was made, all these things, I can bring that together holistically, and it's in one person, right?
Yes.
And I try to train.
True. That's the key, I think. It's one person. That's what you said. Yeah, it's a jack of all, and master of all as well. So
always a student. I'm a lifelong student. I'm always learning.
Give me two great examples of a business problem. Let's define a problem and give me a solution. Just for the audience, like, this is how to approach this. This is how you did it. Just any thing that comes to your mind, like great tough problem you had, and then how you approached it.
I'd have to think about that one a bit more. That's very specific. I just feel like
maybe a logistical issue that we're facing right now, right, around the world. Have you come across that lately, and how you are approaching that?
I think a lot of those requires a lot of just thinking on the feet. But again, market knowledge, right? Knowing that one of the things was when the pandemic was beginning, right? People were thinking like no one was buying fine wine. No one was buying fine wine. Everybody's just going to the supermarket and buying their Boda box, their Franzia, and the things that they can afford and stock up on. But in looking and all the market research that I had been doing and was continuously doing, I was able to foresee that there was going to be
a pop in money. Like money will come
in fine wines.
Okay.
And so there was a point where the owner was thinking maybe we should try to just liquefy some of our inventory. See if we can try to get some cash there. Maybe focus more on storage. Which is not a bad idea too. But I knew it was going to come. People were going to drink their cellars, and I also saw, because of the harvest situation in Bordeaux. And in Burgundy, there was severe frost in some of those areas, also in Champagne, particularly.
So at least you said, don't sell the inventory.
It was like,
keep it. Yeah.
There is going to be a shortage of champagne, especially vintage champagne.
Good call on there.
And it happened.
Yes,
it happened. And so we tried to stock up. I was like, if there's any time to spend money right now, is to get vintage champagne.
Good point. Yeah.
It's really fascinating, because now it's impossible to get.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people, I was hearing about it in the summer, reading the reports of Russian oligarchs going to the Hamptons and not being able to get any vintage champagne. I mean, the struggle is real, right?
Yeah.
So, but for those of us who want to bring those wines to the people, and people come to us for vintage champagnes, we are very fine wine focused. They don't really come to us for the non-vintage, and more of the mid-level, entry level for champagne. They really want vintage, and they want Krug, they want Salon, they want Dom Perignon, they want Cristal. So these are the wines that we are now even running out of now, but at least we were able to hold it up until this time.
I'll maybe give you another example. Is, let's say you are a fine, exactly according to your business. How do you increase private client business? Any sales tips on growing and getting new customers for your business? Have you do you handle a little bit of sales and marketing? Have you got knowledge there?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of the customer care.
Okay.
So I have to say that the best thing to do, and this applies for my business because we're not trying to grow 10x, you know, within a year or two, is to give people the best experience possible. Help them feel like you care about them, because I do. My goal for anything that I do in my consulting and everything in the piano performance, dance performance, whatever it is to give somebody a great experience, right?
How do you find new customers? Let's say, great, someone's walked into your door or inquired, amazing service, but how do you find the new person?
They tell their friends.
Okay.
They really tell their friends. It's amazing.
Got it.
And then their friends tell their friends.
Understood.
And it has grown to the point where, you know, it can be tough for me to juggle sometimes, but at the same time, you know, we have been approached with, okay, maybe we should before, it was years ago, and maybe we should advertise on Wine Spectator, you know, things like that. But that really didn't do very much for us. It was really just that really personal touch. And then for me, I love people. I love going to events, and the more events that I do, you know, even if it's not directly related to Belmont wine, like I'm judging for an exciting event like USA Wine Ratings, right?
Yeah.
So I can go out and meet people, and I can tell them where I'm from, who I work for. Every time I give out my card, I take pride that I'm spreading the word about Belmont Wine Exchange, because I'm very, very
passionate about your
happy
company,
and proud to work for them and to be able to provide that customized experience for people. So hopefully that's how we're going to continue to grow. We just just signed on a new customer who says he and his wife want me to do a case for them every 2 months.
Wow, nice.
So and it makes me so happy that they trust my knowledge and expertise to be able to curate based
because
on,
these are big investments you're talking about, right? Like trust is going to be important because they're going to actually invest and buy and collect, and maybe especially for the special occasions where they're waiting for 14 years on your word that this is going to go well. Why did it all start, and why is Action in London? You know, what is the origin story of Master of Wine?
Well, it was started by folks in London who wanted to have a real tangible benchmark on saying, you know, what is excellence and mastery in wine knowledge, right? And in wine expertise. And they wanted to, the vision of the Institute of Masters of Wine was to be able to have an organization that would be a world-renowned, respected steward for wine education, to be disseminating knowledge, to be providing the resources for seminars, educational experiences, to have the expertise behind that, to support people in the industry, and also to help spread the word of wine through the rest of the world. And
and how long has it been there for?
The first exam was given in 1953.
Wow.
Yeah, the first exam was given in 1953, and it's gotten a lot more structured and a lot more difficult since then, I've heard, but I'm sure it was extremely difficult at that point as well. But 1953, and there are people who've been in the program and have a couple of the people who were named with me in my graduating class, so to speak, and whom I love dearly, were in the program for 8-10 years.
Wow.
People, it's impacting on their family lives and their personal lives very much. Yes, because as you heard probably from the very famous somm videos for the people studying for the master sommelier, about how it was terrible. One of them, I think, maybe got a divorce or something like that. But I'm not saying that it's the same thing, but the pressure is is similar in that respect, because you put so much of your blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's impossible for it to not, take up that sort of psychological, emotional, space inside of you. Yeah. And even for somebody like me, I'm very optimistic and by nature, and there was even a time where while I was studying for the stage 2 exam, thinking like, why am I doing this? I have no idea why. If I'm gonna, this is terrible. Like I don't know how I'm gonna even do this. It's rare for me.
I completely understand. Let's give a little pep talk to the people who are trying and who are, who want to do it. Explain them the benefits of, how this amazing journey of 3-4 years of intense pressure will help them by, out far, and just give them a little, I would say, incentive to keep going.
I'll tell you that, just to follow up from the more despondent statement I just made, it didn't last very long, because I have to say, being in the Master of Wine program teaches you a version of yourself that you can become that you never knew you had. If you can make it through any of the part of the program, maybe not even the whole thing, you will have gained so much. And why? One, the people you meet. Just having an entree into the student global, as a student, the people you meet, the prestige even of having entered the program, which is very selective, is incredible.
Yeah,
I had the opportunity to meet people and go to events that I never would have before, or even had known about, and that in and of itself was absolutely incredible. And the people that you meet, who you taste with, you practice with, they become lifelong friends. Some of my dearest friends now are from that program, and then the second one again is that courage, that humility that you never knew in yourself, that can make you as stronger than you ever thought you were, right? Because after I felt really despondent, and there were certain periods I took that energy and turned it around into, how can I do this differently? It's like the popular painter Bob Ross said, if you don't like the outcome, don't keep doing the same thing. I'm paraphrasing him. Don't keep doing the same thing and expect the outcome will be different.
Yeah.
It forced me to reevaluate my perspective on how I've done things maybe for my entire life.
Yeah.
And to learn ways to do it in the new ways. And that required was sort of like a shedding of skin every time, and it was painful.
Amazing.
But I learned so much from it. And the other thing is that how it makes you so strong is because even though you can study with other people, you can work together, it is your own personal journey. It is your own journey. No one can take that exam except yourself, and no one can do it in the way except the way you do it. And you have to learn how to do that. So there are times when I felt, somebody's doing this. I feel a sense of urgency. Like, what am I doing? She's doing all this stuff. She's going to be great. I'm not. I'm just sitting here. But you know what? Then you take a step back. You look at it. What works for me? What doesn't? And you learn by doing.
Yeah. Everyone's way of learning is different as well, right? So what was that day like, when the results came out? What emotions went through?
Oh, when I passed stage 2, that was huge. And I can tell you about when I found out I got MW.
Yes.
But when I passed stage 2, I thought there was going to be maybe a phone call. I had heard a rumor that they would call you if you had passed. Even one part of the exam, because you can pass the theory and the tasting, which they call practical separately. Separately, you can fail one or pass one or whatever.
And you got to pass both.
And you have to pass both to pass the whole thing, and then you have certain tries before you strike out and have to reapply.
And for this practical, you got to go to London?
No, it's given in different parts of the world, just like the seminars are.
So you go to their
the test site, So the results come from London.
Okay.
And so I knew it was going to be a little bit of the night, so I couldn't sleep. And then I finally fell asleep, and I woke up and I saw that there was no missed calls, and I thought, oh no, I failed everything. And then I saw this email, it just said, Dear Master of Wine candidate, thank you for sitting exam. And my eyes were glazing over. I'm like, just tell me the grades I got, so I knew how badly I did, whatever. And it said, I'm delighted. I was like, you're delighted? Why are you delighted? And I found it, they didn't do a phone call that year, and I had passed everything.
Nice.
In one go, and so, which is rare.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I was flabbergasted, and I jumped out of bed, and I think I ran around the house.
Is it like a marks thing? Meaning like you get 92 out of 100, or what are their scoring? Like
there's absolutely score. Yeah.
So it's like, what is the benchmark? 50 and 15 below is fail, or?
Oh, you have to. It's the benchmark is very high. You have to be. You have to be above at least, like for I believe. I'm not on the grading committee or anything like that, but as far as we understand, you have to gain at least 75 to 80% of the, and getting those points is really, really difficult. It's
so it's
not
point based as well. How
it's
good of an
point-based,
answer it was.
how many marks you get for each one, and it's built up. It's not taken down from say a total and then you dock points. It's not how it works. It's built up from what you say, and every single thing a candidate puts down is scrutinized.
Everyone gets the same questions?
Yes.
Do you know who was number 1 or number 2, or everyone knows just pass or fail?
Everyone knows. If you pass, you don't know exactly how
The
much
score.
you pass, but if you fail, they'll let you know how badly you did.
Okay,
Like what percentile you fit into, so it gives you a sense
got it.
of that, like through an A, B, C, D, and you know that's a percentile.
Okay.
So for an A, you literally have to be, it's 70, 75 doesn't sound like very much
Yeah.
from a regular thing, but for the IMW,
I'm
it's
sure it's
so hard to
yeah.
get to that point.
Yeah,
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But now that I've gone to that point, I understand why.
Yeah.
Now that I'm starting to look at other people's work, and I understand why, and I look back at my past responses, I understand why.
Got it. What was that week where it was in the public and press happened that you joined and you were a master of wine? What kind of emails or calls you got? Just talk to me about like great business opportunities straight away in the first 10 days. Boom, here's new work and opportunities.
While I was asleep, it was happening.
Wow.
So the third stage is, I forgot to mention, is the dissertation, is the research paper. And that was actually my favorite part.
Nice.
Because
What
then
did you do on?
I focused on bringing my two passions together, music and wine. And my paper was a research paper on the influences of classical music on the perception of a Brut non-vintage champagne. So there was research had been done about how music might affect wine, but from an academic standpoint, like how do you quantify this? And there were no studies. I was shocked. There were no studies focusing on sparkling wine. And so I wanted to be able to do that because I love champagne, and it's a great market. It has huge business implications.
So break me on this. You mean how listening to the music affects the way you taste?
The tasting experience, the perception of the wine, right? How
about the wine?
How effervescent does the sparkling wine feel? How fresh and fruity? How how zesty? How vibrant? How complex? How rich? Those things like that you would assess in a wine. And we're not talking about like actual like sense, like if you put an electrode on somebody, the physical reactions. We're talking about the perception of it, because music and wine are two very different sensory experiences. But then people seem to intuitively make connections between them, and I wanted to dig into sort of why. And there is a set of academic research and scientific studies on the concept of cross-modal correspondences.
And that takes like almost a year. You did that, and then that's the final.
Yes.
Wow.
Some people take multiple years, but I was so happy that I hustled on this, because the moment I found out that I passed stage 2, I started putting together my research proposal.
And that became your business, right? As well.
Yes. And I was able to get all my listening experiments in before the pandemic shut down. Because if that had happened, I would have had to scrap the entire thing and write a different paper. I was so happy because I got all my tasting experience in, 71 participants, ready to do the statistical analysis.
Nice. Because live events stopped immediately, and you were lucky enough to document everything before and do this.
I got everything in by Christmas 2019.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I spent a whole year writing my paper, doing the statistical analysis, writing my paper. And so if you ask me what happened after the MW was announced, it was announced on UK time. So my inbox had exploded by the time I woke up. Wow. It had absolutely exploded, and I had these wonderful congratulations, but then there were people asking me about my paper specifically. They wanted to interview me about my research implications of music and wine, and that made me so happy.
This is very interesting. I've never found out, like I go to Master of Wine for a lot of our work as well, right? Like judging especially and things of that nature. Where do I find out who's done what research on? That data is not available on the website, I think.
It is. I know they've just redone the website, and so maybe so if you go to mastersofwine.org/RP, and that means research paper. And then you can see everybody's, and you can download the papers.
Got it. I find on the bios, I click, and then there's nothing but RP.
Yes. On the bios, that's true. It should be on there, shouldn't it?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. My past Google self says, it should be there.
Exactly.
But
internal linking.
Yes. But the opportunities happened immediately. They started coming immediately. Just interest in doing wine panel expertise, judging, people wanting to talk about champagne, people wanting to talk about the classical music. That was one of my biggest goals and made me so happy that I've got my paper published, because I want to continue doing research in that realm, because when you do research, it begets more questions. Right. And so as things level out from the pandemic, I want to start doing more research, but I'm already working on projects where I've been able to do informal research as doing other opportunities.
And when did you become Master of Wine, Susan?
February, the end of February.
So it's just been about 18 months, let's say, approximately, right?
Just this year.
Yeah? So the first month itself, I think, I'm assuming that you got so much already in the first month itself that it got you going, like for the whole...
Oh, yes. So I was immediately working on projects right away with San Francisco Symphony, pairing wines with the new artistic director's world premiere and doing donor events. I did a virtual gala wine pairing event for Peninsula Symphony Orchestra, really helping keep people together during the pandemic where they couldn't go into in-person concerts. Doing events with San Francisco Ballet that way too, because I'm actually on the Young Professionals Board of the marketing board of San Francisco Ballet. And worked with the San Francisco Symphony before in the past as a consultant to get them on the media platforms. Very
interesting. Just the last question. Let's wrap here. What are the things you would want to say to a student? Trying an aspiring person who wants to become a Master of Wine. Just some tips, some encouragement, some honest facts. Just maybe you can look in the camera and just tell them. What can they expect? How tough it's going to be, and whether it's good or not, or I'm sure it's good, but what will it take?
Well, I just have to say to anybody who's considering something like the Master of Wine or any other path that is really, really rigorous, give it a go if you are very interested. And throughout the entire process, keep your heart and your mind open as to whether it's the right path for you, because it's okay if it's not. You don't have to suffer needlessly. And if it is, remember why you're doing it and what the love is. Because that's what has kept me going, and that's what will keep me going for the rest of my life, because I am a lifelong student. Becoming a Master of Wine doesn't mean I have stopped researching and learning. I will do it forever. The world is fascinating. Keep learning, and remember that this is your journey and your life, and that is the most valuable thing that you can remember. It's your journey, so make it your own and make it meaningful.